We have come to Laurinburg, North Carolina, which is where many of the Scots and Highlanders came in the 18th century and settled here around the Cape Fear area.
Right, and roughly by 1770, 1774, there were an estimated 20,000 Scots. So one of the key things for them to acquire land here in the New World was they had to swear an oath of allegiance to George III.
Including your ancestors.
Yes, Angus MacDonald and his wife Catherine. So many of them remain loyal to the crown, though not all.
Because you have ancestors that came from here, which is the main reason we came, and we know that one was a patriot.
Indeed, John McNair was a patriot and fought for the cause of liberty.
And there were many battles in this area. One of the biggest, most famous is Moore's Creek Bridge.
It was the battle that featured the last charge of a Scottish brigade with mainly broadswords as their weapon of choice.
So come with us and we're going to show you Scotland County, and we're going to learn about the Scottish heritage right here in North Carolina.
Yep, we came to the Scotland County Memorial Library doing some genealogical research.
Sometimes it's easy to go online and find census records and everything, but you don't want to go off people's Wikipedia or just trees you find online because they're not always accurate.
Right, and so public libraries actually have great resources for researching your family, maybe even where their property was, marriage certificates, wills, right? So you can find out what property they had.
One of the really cool things they have at the library is old records of the church that we're going to go to. And remember, this is the Scottish area. This is so funny. They're saying that the Scottish fair that was held at the church, people got way too drunk and the horse races got so out of hand that the people wrote the governor and made sure Scottish fairs were outlawed everywhere. It's really interesting stuff you find when you come to these libraries and you look up the old town's history.
All right, so we're getting ready to leave the Scotland County Memorial Library. We're gonna go 3 minutes by car up the road to try and find the MacDonald family cemetery, which I think they call it the Douglas family cemetery.
And all we know is we're going to Kings Road and we're gonna follow this strip up 1 mile, and it's somewhere along that mile.
Yep, so we're gonna go out there, fight the rain, and find some old grave sites.
Hopefully.
One of the exciting things about all of that stuff you do in the library, searching for your ancestors and maybe where their land was and where they may be buried, is there's a lot of mystery that's left because a lot of these records are old and they were written down by people who knew where all this stuff was, that now 100, 200, 250 years later, people have kind of forgotten about. So the only thing about this Douglas cemetery that we knew was it was on the left side of the road about a mile from an intersection. And it did mention that in 1976, it was all grown over with trees and was already hard to find. So we rode up and down this road, looking for my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, Angus and Catherine MacDonald, and luckily found their son Alexander as well. So we were riding up and down, couldn't find it. We stopped at a house of a local, and he mentioned he didn't know if this was it, but he did know there were some graves just across the street from a brick house that was on the right side of the road. So we stopped. Here they are, and they probably haven't been visited in many, many years by a family member.
We just found who we believe to be another set of Steve's 5 times great-grandparents.
We've got John McNair and Catherine Bowie.
From Kilkenny, Scotland.
Yes, and so John McNair immigrated here in 1770, fought in the Bladen County Militia, and we're here to visit his grave and honor him today.
As a patriot, and being Scotland County, a lot of Scots were loyalists. So we were pretty excited to find out that Steve's Scottish ancestor was a patriot.
Indeed.
And
And behind us over here is the old Laurel Hill Presbyterian Church. Both sets of his grandparents, the McDonalds and the McNairs, went to that church.
The Scottish immigrants that made up Laurel Hill Presbyterian Church also engaged in, right in this area, was the Scottish Festival, or the Scots Festival. So it was a time of games and of drinking and of merrymaking. However, in the early 19th century, they say it got so out of hand between the gambling, the drunkenness, and the horse races that seemed to just go crazy and run amok. The women here petitioned the governor to get rid of the Scots Festival, and not only did it disappear here, it disappeared from the rest of the state as well. So the Scots Festival was outlawed.
We are here in Brunswick. As you can see, it's now ruins, but it's one of the original bustling towns of North Carolina. Two of the original royal governors of North Carolina, Dobbs and Tryon, actually lived here. Dobbs died and he's buried in the church ruins, and then Tryon went on up to New Bern, which became where the governor's mansion was. But Brunswick was a bustling town. The Spanish tried taking it. They failed, and out here in the water is where their ship La Fortuna, the Fortune, basically, sunk, and one of the cannons from that ship is actually inside the museum here.
So the Scots assembled at Cross Creek and began their march to the sea to meet those British regulars that were coming to reinforce them to once again establish or reestablish royal control of the province of North Carolina. Things wouldn't work out so well for that plan, though, because partway to Brunswick town, those loyalist Scots, about 1,000 to 1,500 loyalist Scots, would meet a patriot force roughly equal in size that would stop them at a junction point called Moore's Creek Bridge. Things didn't go so well for the loyalists at the time. They never arrived here in Brunswick town, so that when those 1,000 redcoats landed, they didn't find any loyalists to support their invasion of North Carolina.
We are here at Moore's Creek Bridge battlefield, and I'm going to talk a little bit about legends. There is a lady, Flora MacDonald. Have you ever heard of her? She was the Scottish heroic woman back in Scotland who helped Bonnie Prince Charlie escape after the Jacobite Rebellion. You know the song, Over the Sea to Sky. She did help him escape in Scotland, and her family did come to North Carolina. But the story is, when her husband was coming here to battle, she showed up on a white horse and rallied the troops. There's no proof that happened, but we do know she did help Bonnie Prince Charlie in Scotland. She did come to North Carolina, and she was here in North Carolina when this battle happened, and her husband was taken prisoner and they lost their home, and she eventually went back to Scotland.
One of those popular myths about the Scots, where they were always this rebellious people, right? Anytime any authority tried to impose itself that was not a Scottish authority, they rebelled. And that's true to a certain extent when you're talking about the high Middle Ages all the way up and through the early 18th century, but really after the Battle of Culloden in 1745, the Scots more or less fall in line behind the English king. And even if you really want to think about it, the Battle of Culloden itself wasn't so much a battle against the English king as it was who was going to be the English king. They wanted to restore the Stuart line to the English throne, but they were still throwing in their lot with English royalty. Here at Moore's Creek Bridge, the majority of the loyalist force that would fight were fighting for king and country, right? They were marching to Brunswick town to meet up with British regulars to restore George III's sovereignty over the province of North Carolina.
Here at the battlefield, there is a monument for the Scots who fought as loyalists for the crown. It's kind of funny in a way because there's this whole theme that they were still heroes because they were forced to fight for the crown because they made an oath. I hate to say it, but the Germans made an oath, the Welsh made an oath, everybody else made an oath who came here and got land, and they chose to be patriots. So this was a choice.
Right, so the patriots, knowing that the loyalist force had to cross this bridge in order to continue their march to the sea, pulled up the planks from the bridge and they greased the runners with tallow and with soap that made it very difficult for those loyalist Scots to pass over the bridge.
Here in this spot, it was dark. The Scottish came through here. They'd crossed the swamps, the marshy land. Once again, like I said, it was very dark, and they were approaching the bridge of Moores Creek. This is when they had a feeling the Patriots were on the other side. So they started speaking in Gaelic to see if they would respond. Silence. They shot a musket. Silence. So they thought maybe the Patriots had taken off running. So they started playing their bagpipe music, and they began a charge to head over the bridge to get the Patriots.
So as the loyalist force began crossing the bridge, they got about 50 people here. They thought the Patriots were on the run, and so they decided with that small number, they were going to go ahead and charge into the Patriots camp and chase them from the area. So with the cry of King George and broadswords, they drew their swords and began charging at the Patriot lines. Little did they know the Patriots were laying in wait under earthen breastworks, ready to ambush them.
As the Scottish came over the bridge, that's when they came across the Patriots. Well, guess what? They had a cannon. They weren't expecting that. They had their muskets. The battle was over in all of 3 minutes. The Patriots decimated them. So as the day broke and the sun came up, there were bodies everywhere. Some of them even
Down in the swamp. So some may have fallen off the bridge. Remember, they had those greased runners.
And remember, we had said they were trying to get down to Brunswick to attack the Patriots. The Patriots knew if they got down there and they got to meet up with their reinforcements,
That things would be a lot more difficult here in North Carolina.
so the Patriots took care of them right here at
Moores Creek Bridge.
When people start researching their family trees, a lot of people are just looking for that royal connection, or hey, I'm a 16 times cousin distance to Anne Boleyn. Guys, that stuff's not important.
Yeah, so you are related to real people, right? People with real lives that had real contributions and made consequential decisions that affected not only their life, but really, if you think about it, your life as well, right? Because if they'd have chosen a different way, you may not be here.
They might have been a farmer, but there's a story. They might have been a slave, but guess what? There's a story. Real stories for real people. So when you research your ancestry, it's imperative that you search census records, wills. Don't just go off Wikipedia or something you find online, because most people, like I said, are just searching for a royal connection, so half of it's not even correct.
Right, and so another thing that it also does is you may find you have connections to places and events that maybe you didn't really necessarily know that your family was here, say at Moores Creek Bridge, fighting on one side or the other, or maybe even both sides.
So when you come here and you're walking it, you're walking in your ancestors' footsteps. That's something that's not everyone can say they're walking in their 5 or 6 times great-grandfather's footsteps. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so make sure you look at your family history, find out where they were, where they lived, how they lived, and then come see the places that they lived their lives.
Especially with the 250th anniversary of our country coming up.
Yeah.
Don't you want to know where your people came from? Who has made you today? Yeah. Research your ancestors. Trust me, it's not as tedious as some people think. It's a lot of fun, and you find out fascinating information.
Absolutely.